then Eswin can take a look at it.
Okay.
Yeah, so be careful what you say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So what we want to do today is that we want to show you like how far we have come with all of the workflows that we have. We have questions, really important ones that we really need to talk about and square them away, because after that we can say that the editing part and the QSE part, the quality control, the RBJ files, and the topology, we can complete those at that point. Cash, did you want to get started with this, our agenda? And
yeah, sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, our agenda. So we have a set of workflows that are now completed. We have videos and documentation for these workflows. I'll come below first just to give you a peek here. The ability to follow a prescribed workflow when merging parcels. This workflow is complete with video and documentation. We can demonstrate this for you as well. As well as task 345, ability to follow a prescribed workflow to input a track, as well as 347, ability to follow a prescribed workflow when subdividing parcels. So we have a few that are still in progress. Boundary line adjustments, least squares adjustments, established basis of bearing. These are in progress. We have a few questions regarding the topology, the land hooks, things like that before we get to wrap up these 3 workflows. We also have split parcel using meets and bounds that's completed as well. So the data is very quality, and we just have a few questions regarding some of these things down here. So with that being said,
yeah, can we pause for a moment over here? We want to make sure that these workflows that you see here addresses most, all of your requirements, in the sense that in our document we have these, either they're completely done or they're in progress somewhere, but these are the workflows that you have for Cadastral. Is there anything else that you can think of as far as Cadastral data is concerned?
What else do we do? Tract maps and parcel maps are basically the same thing. Merging parcels, yes. Subdividing parcels and boundary line adjustment and splitting parcels are all pretty much the same thing.
Okay.
You're either, splitting a parcel by meets and bounds. It's not very often that you're going to split a parcel and it's going to be a perfect offset of something. So almost all splitting a parcel in the subdivision is going to be some kind of meets and bounds that we're going to have to use, whether it's a recorded map. Real important, our conversation about basis of bearing, being able to set a basis of bearing and have that relate to what's existing in the GIS system and what's the map is telling us, so we can have that spatial relationship between the angles on the map and the angles in the GIS system. So that's kind of critical for. It's not impossible to do drafting and not be able to set that basis of bearing, but you have to go in and adjust every single line that you're doing. So if everything is adjusted 1 minute, 30 seconds, or 1 minute, or 2 degrees, 30 seconds, something like that, you have to make those adjustments to every single line. And it can get pretty tedious if the system's not doing it for you.
Sure. Yeah, and that's a great point that you just brought up, Doug. So you can establish your basis of bearing and to match the survey plan or plat that you have to be the same true north as you're drawing your traverse or your Kogo. So we'll video this workflow for you and also document it in ArcMap so that you can see that process there. Versus
we were spending a lot of times talking about land hooks, and land hooks are not that big of a deal to the cadastral portion of it. it's more of a planning operation. Planning says, hey, these two separate lots, which are not legally one lot, are tied together by this document that we've created. And it's just more symbology of somebody being able to see that these two are tied together, and that symbology being related to the document that makes them tied together. So I don't know if that's such a big deal in
it normally isn't, right? You just have like a point there which is showing, and that's why we want to discuss about that, in the sense that we just want to make sure that there isn't any like, for example, we're talking about topology rules. We want to see, okay, is there going to be like a topology rule that we need to set up so that this lot info point is sitting on the top at the boundary of two parcels or something like that? Or so that's why we're trying to see, is there a spatial relationship or is there an attribute relationship? But if it's just something that's floating like on the top of the parcels.
floating on top of that line, just as a visual representation to somebody saying, hey, when you get the legal description, when you get the title report for that property, it's going to have a covenant agreement in its documentation, in its Schedule B document, saying that this property has to be sold in conjunction with this other property. Just, and so it's more of a relationship. And if a line can't zigzag over two parcels in the parcel fabric, then that's not a big deal. If we could get some kind of representation, like an arrow pointing to this one and an arrow pointing to that one, then you're saying, oh, what do those two arrows mean? They mean something. Somebody put them in there, click on it, and says, oh, this is a land hook.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't necessarily have to cross over some way. I understand that if your lines crossing over lines is something the parcel fabric doesn't like. So if we can't do something that visually ties them together, or if it zigzags to the line and then starts another zigzag on the other side of the line, and there's no actual continuity in that zigzag, it splits right on the line, then that would be okay too.
Okay.
I mean, it's literally just a marker symbol. That's all it is.
It is just something, a visual representation that when somebody looks at that, we can see it and say, something's going on here. Look into us. This needs a deeper dive.
Okay.
So you guys can create a zigzag line for the lot info point, but
symbology.
It's a simple drop the point, and yeah, there's a symbol there. And we just kept the lines in there because what I would do is I'd put lot info lines and lot info points together as a group layer.
Okay.
But we could have
easily
moved lot info lines into historic. We just didn't do it.
Okay. Let me also quickly say this here. It's sometimes, and this is again, we've noticed maybe, or there are situations where you have three parcels together like that. Do you have to show that those three are the same, or it's just okay, you just put those symbols wherever they belong and people can interpret from there?
Yeah, and more of, like you said, more than anything, it's just an interpolation for us to be able. Somebody calls us and they're asking about this parking lot, and then we can look at it and say, well, there's something going on here. That lot looks like it's tied to that one, and the building that's on. So it would be like a parking lot, a building, and a parking lot, and they're all tied together because this building needs 50 spots on this side and 25 spots on that side. So they all have to sell together because that building was conditioned to have 75 parking spots.
Okay.
So somebody comes in and says, I want to buy that parking lot. It's like, you can't buy that parking lot alone. It's tied to the whole.
Harith, I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
Let's say going from survey to GIS language, and this is a little bit hard for us, and let me just explain something. I was talking about an easement to somebody, and how in GIS we were able to create a polygon and while reading an easement. So I'm thinking, could the same rule apply with the covenant agreement, where, let's say, if the land hooks become a problem, if that covenant encumbers two parcels, can we use a polygon that's attached to that covenant agreement that could also encumber like two or three parcels, let's say, if that's what the covenant implies?
Yeah, that's what we know, that you can show those points there, right? And that's okay. But we were trying to see, there will be documents linked to these land hooks, right? There will be some documentation that's linked to these, correct?
Yeah, at times, yes, at times, because let's say the land hook, like Doug was saying, the land hook just tells us, hey, look for a covenant agreement, because that covenant agreement is what's going to say this is why these two parcels are
So is
let's
there
say attached.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
is there a hyperlink field inside of lot info points?
I don't think those are linked.
can we, Lata, show the screen? Are you on the system yet?
Yes, I'm on the
Okay,
system.
maybe this is a good time to just take a look at the data itself. So I'll change Lata to be the presenter for a minute, and we'll take a look at what's in there in those lot info points and lines. Lata? Okay.
Minute, I had it. Let me see, where did it go?
Weren't you supposed to be on O2, right? Okay, good. Okay. Did you bring in the lot info points on this onto the map too?
Okay, so let's info points and lines. I'll just bring
Right.
these two.
Just bring those. And the plan is that we'll probably, when we bring them in, we're going to group them and call them, land hooks, right? So I think when we were looking at the data, we wanted to know a little bit more to see how it's been set up. Right now, are there any relationships from those lot info points and lines?
We should put a hyperlink field in that lot info point, maybe.
There is a field
So that-
already called hyperlink
Where?
at the end.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see it. I
Yeah.
think it's the font you're using. That's an interesting font.
I know.
It's okay.
I don't know how it got.
We actually have a way to the document linking is basically done. We just got to figure out how to pop it in, because some of the fields are deeds and storm are the same numbering convention. So we got to figure that out. But for some of this stuff, we should be able to hard code it.
Yeah, see the land hooks, like you say, if we were to place land hooks on two parcels and you get rid of that existing line in the middle and you call it historical, then when you click on that, it automatically assumes that they're two parcels, like if it was merged, but there wasn't a document attached to that automatically, if that helps.
Yeah, we see the lot info line pass right below that point, right? So you're looking at one example here. This lot info line. Can you identify, Lata, what's on that? What's the green line there? You said topmost layer. Can you choose all layers visible? Yeah. Further down. Lot info line. Okay. So that's the line there. And it seems like it may not be on the parcel boundary, this specific line here, or so.
And I think this might be part of the reason that some people were dropping in those land hooks, and they may not be the same thing that Eswin and I are familiar with. This might have happened before, and it might have been something that the original transfer did to put those hooks together, just to show somebody that here's a line that was never abandoned, but these two properties on either side of this line go together. So there might not be a document associated with it. So that's going to be a deeper dive on our part to make sure that if there is a document associated with it, or if it's just something where somebody wanted to show a connection between two lots in their mapping. And since we obviously didn't do all the mapping, we're not 100% sure on how everything was done.
Right. And it's okay for us to keep things as they are. We'll symbolize them like with that, the Z symbol and so on, to show that they're connected. In some cases, we may not find like two parcels there. Mm, so it may take a little bit of time to come up with the right symbology, Lata. I wouldn't try
Yeah.
that right now. But I would like to see if there are two parts. This may be a situation where there are not like two parcels. Can you go for the lower, like the, I'm sorry, the upper object IDs? You actually have 65,339. That's a lot of lot info lines there. How about lot info points? Can you go check the lot info point? You
Yeah,
only
I
have
think
378.
lot info lines are different. I think lot info line is a historical line. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's something that when we're mapping, and let's say someone did a merger
Uh-huh.
and we have two lots that were side by side, we merged, we got rid of that line. Now that line we made it historical and it goes into a different layer.
Mm-hmm.
And in CADME, it came up as a blue dash line. And I think that was a lot info line. It no longer had anything to do with
The lot
the
info points.
the lot itself. It was
Okay.
just kind of, hey, there was a line here at one point in time. It looks like somebody did something, and there should be some. It got mapped over by something else. So this could have been something that was mapped over by the original mapping
Okay.
in 1995. That was just a conversion from our counter books.
So for showing the land hooks, we won't be using the lot info lines. We are going to call them historic lot lines, correct?
Yeah, a
I
lot of
think
the line gets replaced by the history.
It's like historic lot line. So can you, Lata, just rename this to historic? Yeah, just call it historic. That's good. Okay.
Harita, just a quick question.
Mhm.
I guess in lieu of having so much work, let's say, could it be possible to make a symbol just to symbolize that, hey, this is just a land hook and it's just a symbol? It's like a monument symbol or something like that.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
let's say we have a lot like most of the lot info lines that you guys are gonna find are gonna be where old right of way lines used to be. Because as we get right away, as a street becomes wider, the old line it goes into historical and it goes into that lot info, and then you have the new right of way line. So we never get rid of the old line just so we know where it used to be.
Let me ask you this question. This lot info line may or may not have anything to do with the land hooks. The land hooks are really your lot info point at this point. That's my understanding.
Yes,
Am I correct? Okay.
yes,
Um,
that's correct.
so Lata, can you rename or at the end of that lot info point, call it land hook so that we're clear? Okay. So with that being done, with that being identified, we can just go to that lot info points and symbolize them. Wherever they are, they will probably show some kind of a notion of, the arrows like pointing one, like it'll be more like a line kind of symbol. Maybe
You can
check.
almost do it like an N. You do it like an N where the line starts on one side, goes across, comes back, and goes forward.
Yeah, like an N shape. Yeah, we can do that. And
how many
so
lot info? How many of these points do we have in?
we just have
378.
378. That's it, really.
Okay, that makes sense. That number seems fair.
Yeah. So my question on the lot info line, historic lot lines, is that something that you would need on your MXT for reference purposes?
Yeah,
Yes.
those lines are never going to be changed again. Now, hypothetically, if there was ever time permitting that you could go back through and rebuild the underlying lots, but I just don't think that's
Okay, so just for reference, you need to have it on the background.
yes.
Yes,
So we
if
really
there was
could,
ever like a right of way, if there was ever a right of way vacation and we needed to go back and this happens quite oftenly where somebody wants to vacate a street and they want to know if they can take the whole street or they can only take half. Having those historical lines, we're able to tell you, okay, it came from that subdivision, you can go halfway, or yes, you can take all of it.
So we could rename it and then stick it in the cadastral reference feature data set.
Yeah, and so then
Yes.
so that if it does freeze up space on the
It's
system,
more
so
like
that
an
it's not going to have to be
organized,
changed.
right? It's more like an organization thing. I think if, well, however, you know, Ted, if you're making that change, maybe sooner the better on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, I'm just saying you guys could go out and just load it or leave it the way it is. It doesn't really matter if it's where it's at.
Yeah, the critical part that we are having right now, and we are having this discussion because of this, is documentation. Um, like, and then some of the other questions. So we are okay with lot lengths. We're just going to make it that way. You have the hyperlink field, and we may look at it and then go for a topology rule that might say it has to stay on like a couple of parts, at the intersection of the two parcels, like at the parcel boundaries, right? We can give that kind of rule there, and that's fine. So we probably want to then discuss the next item on our list.
So we could just leave lot info where the lines where they're at. Because there's a relationship class in there. I mean, we need the relationship class tied back to recorded doc.
Lata, can you check?
That's what I saw. Yeah, I saw that relationship class. So
Okay, then you can't move it. Not
yeah,
good to
there's
move.
one.
I mean, you can move it, but to recreate it.
What does it relate to?
It's links in the
record.
recorded doc. There's a table out there called recorded doc.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense to leave it then there.
Okay.
Okay. Let's then move on to the next item. Is everybody clear on this? Anybody has any questions?
No, we're good.
Okay. Lata, are you able to open up the same? Okay. So Cash,
You didn't talk about annotation. You skipped annotation.
we didn't. We wanted to talk only in the context of double checking with you. Last time we saw how the annotations behaved, the feature linked annotations. Did you want them to be handled, the links before or after? Remember, we showed you two methods of doing cleaning up the annotations. Either you can link it up properly before, or you can do it after.
So if I recall, the consultant who did the conversion showed us if we do it one way, we run into all these problems, which was the feature linked way, and if we did it another way, we didn't run into all those problems. And that's why it was decided to go the unfeature linked way. But if the data looks fine, then feature linked would probably be more ideal for Cadastral.
Yeah, I think they are feature linked. Honestly, I think maybe we have to ask Cash to show his screen, because last time, remember, Cash, would you be able to give us a recap of how the annotations behave, maybe when you split?
Yeah, sure. So it looks like there's a few relationship classes in there to the annotations.
Can I
But when you
make you
split
the
a parcel, they duplicate. Yeah, sure.
Okay, let me make you
So
the
they
presenter.
do split. Let's see, share.
Yeah.
Can everybody see ArcMap?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, do you have the annotations turned on?
Let's see. So our annotations, our reference here.
The parcel fabric ones, I think, at the bottom are the ones that you have the parcel fabric. Yeah,
Yep,
that's the
right
one.
there.
Okay.
Okay, so if we were to, let's say, merge parcels, or really anything, they do duplicate, and it's a text value. So I think we did this before.
Yeah, we just want to have a quick recap of this. So maybe you can split one parcel and then see, or merge. Yeah. So you.
This parcel,
Mhm.
this is without creating a plan, right? So this is just essentially, merging the parcel. And you'll see that the annotations,
You have two sets
here.
of annotations.
Yeah, so we have the record and we have the measured, right?
I think, can you undo this change for a second, Cash?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so look at that. The annotations that are currently there are 55, 55, 100, and 100, correct? So
Yep.
these are the annotations that are already existing in your data. Can you identify the annotation that says 100 with the identify tool, Cash?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so you see, actually, can you identify the annotation, not the parcel?
Let's see. Sorry.
Let me,
Okay.
okay.
Okay. Give control.
So
There you
can
go.
you, yeah, so you see that if you can drill down that 100 there, and then it's linked to the lines, right? But there is no line that's linked to it actually, currently. Okay, so these are your feature linked annotations, but the linking is missing. Okay, so if you click on 100 again, the number, and you will see that there is something called feature ID, which is currently null. That means the annotations were brought over, but they were not linked to the correct lines.
Yeah.
Okay, so now when Cache went and deleted things, the concept with feature linked annotation is when you update your data or when you actually create new features in your data, the annotation gets created along with it. Having known or recognized that there is no annotation linked to those lines, it created the new annotations, which are which it read off based on the annotation expression, like whatever it's supposed to generate, whether it's the length or the numbers. So it generated new annotations. So if so right
So it
now that,
created those annotations, but those annotations were 56 feet long, right? Is that what
correct,
we saw?
yes, it read from the line length, I believe. And that's basically coming from the line length. So in the
If the
sense,
line length is perfect, that works. But if it's not, we need a recorded length field.
yeah, so the distance on this length line is 56.272, and the expression for that is based on that. Now, did somebody, if somebody got this number 55 and put that in any of the fields over here, it would have
These
stayed.
these are probably original drafted lots from the original transfer, so they might have been scanned and dropped in, but that lot line is supposed to be 55 feet, and so it's going to measure out in the field in the real world going to be 55 feet. So somehow we need to relate that.
So you need to bring in that 55 into this distance field, correct?
Yeah, we
The
need to bring
distance is
55.
probably
So
shaped.
Okay.
because if I went to CADME and clicked on that line, most likely I would get a 55
You sure
in
about
there.
if
What is this?
Click on it.
This is Pine
Click
Street.
on it. You get a. Click on that link. I bet what's happening is the 55 is a recorded shape length, and what you're seeing on the distance is actually the geometry length. Is
yeah,
distance? There's two fields in there. There's distance and there's recorded distance. Recorded distance is really just pulling what's in distance. So is distance the shape length field? Is it aliased as distance?
let me take a look. 1 second.
What's the intersection there? It's Pine and what?
Yeah, let's sorry. Fourth.
Fourth.
Pine and Fourth.
Yeah, when I did a parcel base before, we always had to have a separate field for the recorded distance, and that's what we used for labeling purposes versus the actual geometry length. They were always separate because as soon as you adjust, you're going to alter the lengths and even some of the angles and all that sort of thing.
Now these guys are on survey control point, so they really could be pulling from shape distance if they're really using control for everything. But
right.
it's better to have that extra field for recording.
So that's correct.
Sorry.
That line in Cadme is 55 as a looks exactly like that, and it's 56.27223. So that's exactly what's going on in Cadme to create that block. So we're in good shape there. That makes sense. That just that's a lot of fluff.
Shape length is actually now showing, and recorded distance is 56.272, which is the same as the shape length. Recorded distance should be 55.
Is it correct that the recorded distance should be 55?
Yeah.
Okay, if recorded distance should be 55, so here's the thing, right? We were doing the merging, and then it would have turned to 110 when you merged these two.
It should be 110, but most likely what we're going to find out, the actual distance on the ground is going to be 112.
Okay, like if you were to get it from other source, you would be updating those attributes, correct?
Yeah. So
Yes.
somebody came in and was going to do a map over this, and they had to measure and create 11 and 12. A merger, if they were just doing a merger, they don't have to go and measure anything in the field. But if they were going to map over this block, they'd have to come out and measure, and then the error when we mapped over it would be shown, and it would be cleaned up.
Okay.
This is original downtown Riverside block, so it was measured 150 years ago.
Okay. So there's two ways to approach this, right? You would have to go and correct these values over here, but even then this annotation is not linked to it. That is one thing. There's two problems over here. One is that the recorded distance should have been 55, correct?
Yeah.
And the second thing is that this annotation is not linked to it. Now, if you were editing this, the new annotations get created after you edit, like as soon as cache merged. And cache, can you show us the merging ones? You will notice new annotations pop up there.
You hear when we merge?
Yeah.
Does that new annotation number, that 56 or the 112, does that have to be on, or can that be turned off?
Let us show you 1 second. He's going to have to select just those two parcels.
Okay. We're done merge?
Yeah.
All right.
So you see that you have these lines over here, right? Which is basically you have 55, 55. Those are your older annotations that were already there. And here's the new annotations that got created because of the feature link. Now here you got a line that's, I think it's saying 56.277 and 55. So if you go in and edit these lines, the lengths, then they will all kind of come together. Cash, how many lines are here right now? Are there 2 lines or 1 line?
1, 2. So, 1 second. So right here in this merge, it looks like we have 1, 2, 2 lines here. So this looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Looks like about 12 lines total.
Is that an expected result, or are you expecting only to have 4 lines when you merge the parcels?
When we merge these parcels, what's going to happen in theory is we have 4 lines, because these 255s go to 110, and these 255s on the south go to 110, and we have 100 and 100. And those are going to be, because a merger is going to be strictly in-house, no field survey. Now, if somebody came in and mapped this and was going to set the corners and do a record of survey, then the new distances would be 112, 111, 99, and 98, and it would be 4 lines, and those 4 lines would be sitting on top of whatever was historic. So the middle points on the northwest and southeast, or northeast and southwest, would go away. Those points.
Yeah.
So that means that cache, one more step in there is also merging the lines, right?
Correct. Correct.
step of this, final step of that would be merge that. So the 56.272 and the 56.153 would become 112.
But that's still going to just show shape length, and shape length isn't recorded length. So do we want to just show shape length, or
we can check 1 second.
Yeah,
Can
we'll want to show. You got a good point there.
there is something here as far as your annotations are concerned, and let me show you. Cash, can you navigate to that location where you have the data? And we didn't make any changes to the annotation expressions ourselves. We're just using, so never mind all those other things there.
Yeah, just test environment strictly.
Yeah, so let's.
The apples and the oranges in this situation are apples are going to be administrative mergers, lot line adjustments where no field survey is done, and that's going to stay the 110. And the oranges are going to be getting mapped to a record of survey where somebody did from field survey, and that's going to be showing the 112. So we need, in each case, it's going to be, in some cases it needs to be the 112, and in some cases it needs to be the 110.
Yeah, and
okay.
It's a choice that you will be making it at some point, right? So
yeah, and so categorizing track maps, records of surveys, and parcel maps as non-administrative, where field work is going to be processed and the actual distance on the ground is going to be important, is different from administrative processes, which is going to be lot line adjustments, lot mergers, lots of consolidations, which is all going to be record data.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say that it's a blanket statement that we need it. It's nice to know in an administrative that we have something on the ground that's going to be 56, not 55, but the document that records could show 55 or 110.
Yeah, and then on your plats and on your things for the city, you'll want it to represent what's on the plat as well for landowners or for buyers.
Yeah, somebody doesn't come in and get confused and say, why does it say 110 on my legal description and it says 112 on yours? Do I have 2 extra feet? And well, if you want to spend the money to get a record of survey, you can know exactly how big your parcel is, which is not
exactly.
to have.
Yeah, which surveys are going to cost a minimum of 5 to 10,000. So.
Yep.
What I'm noticing is that it's got the distance field. This is what we're talking about, right? That one is called the parcel dimension. Let me actually.
And in our business, we call them a lot of times just record and measured.
Right. Okay. So parcel dimensions is the related like annotation class here.
Is the measured and what we're actually, how long the line actually is.
That's the calculated, but it's not the act. Okay.
So 56.13, and that is coming from an attribute up there. We just checked, it was the distance attribute. The expression was, and Lata, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's just the distance attribute, right?
Yes.
There isn't anything else. So distance attribute from the line.
Correct.
Does GIS do any kind of slope distances, or are all of these lines two-dimensional?
For now,
these are two-dimensional, but you could do slope. You could calculate slope into another field. We could always calculate it into another field.
We don't want to put any slope on any of our lines. That's adding an element that we don't.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Yeah.
Let me open up
being that
the attribute table. Yeah, right now it isn't considering that.
Any kind of elevation on either side, so we're not adding any kind of extraneous information on the distance.
Right. So I believe that there is a field called distance here. I'm trying to see which exactly, because you have like a couple of them. So source record length. This I believe is the field. You go to the properties on this one.
There's a bearing, and then next to that there's a distance.
Okay, bearing and distance. So this is not the field, not record distance.
Now, is it possible per line to say which measurement we want turned on and what measurement we want turned off?
Are you talking about this table or what's shown on the annotation?
The annotation. So you have that 56 in there, in which when you join those lines, which is going to end up being 112, and we like to know that that distance is 112, but we just don't need to be published to everybody saying that it's 112, because on the document it's going to say 110. So we want to see 110, but we want to be able to know that it's 112. And if we could turn off that 112 and then be able to turn it on, that would be interesting.
Yeah. So this is the distance field, right? So this is the field from which we are getting this annotation. Let me just like freeze this so that we can take a look at it. And there is also something called record distance here.
Record distance, yeah. Record direction, record distance, yeah. Got it.
Trying to freeze. Okay, so those are the two fields. One of them you said is something somebody inputs, correct? And the other one is something which
Cadme had a unique way of doing things. When you drafted something and you put in a distance of 55 and then you put in another distance of 75 and you didn't quite reach where you were going, and you ran your rotate, translate, and scale on that, it kept both attributes. It says, okay, that was a 55 length, but in our spatial orientation, that wasn't correct. So we made some adjustments. So it said 55 and then it said 55.23, which is the distance that it's supposed to be and the actual distance that it was. So you got two fields. A lot of times they ended up being the same, and this could be what both these fields are, and you're going to see a lot of them, but there's going to be other instances where they might not be the same, but a lot of these do look
okay.
like
So this is what we are
the ones right there, the 50.99, those are most likely supposed to be 51s.
Okay. I mean, we can go to any of these, right, and check how they look like. So we know that the field that it's reading off for the annotation is distance. If it should be record distance, then it's a schema change. Somebody needs to go and fix the annotation expression.
Stack the identify button underneath the table of contents.
Sorry?
You should stack the identify button underneath the table of contents.
Oh yeah, I'll do that.
You're running out of screen real estate.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. Okay. So let me, I pan to this record, but let me make sure I zoom out a little bit. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so you see that little distance there, it does say it's 24.29 and both the distances are the same and they're okay, right?
Yep. Now what is, if you click on the identifier of that 2429, what is the actual distance of it?
You mean like the shape length, right?
Yeah.
Pretty close,
So
right?
Yeah, so it got it to the 10,000. So that's pretty.
Right.
That's close enough. So that was. I'm not
Yeah.
exactly sure where trail run is, but that looks like a pretty clean cul-de-sac. So those distances are pretty good.
Yeah, most of them seem to match up.
Yeah, and they should.
Okay.
But you are going to run into areas where you do have discrepancies, and all that has to do with just the older mapping. an area 100 years ago and then mapping an area today.
Right. So I guess as long as we're all okay with the fact that the distances are being read from this field, that's the question. You know, is it okay to have this field be the driver for the feature linked annotations?
That to me looks like that's some kind of measured field, because you got the 282.99.265. That's going to be a measured, and that's not going to be a record, which is the actual length on the ground. So that's not a historical number.
So are the distances being created from the record then? And then you're also kind of seeing, if you check the lines, if you check the attributes on the line, are you able to see the true length to the record?
The record's going to be static data that's sitting on the screen, and the measured data is going to be something that we're going to find. It's what's happening is when you do the merger, it starts to show you as an attribute what the distance is of the lines that you just merged. They become measured lines, so it automatically gives you a length on those.
Right. So Haritha, are you saying that as long as everybody's okay that we show the record, even though the measure is different, then that's fine, right?
Well, I just want to make sure that this distance field that we're talking about is the correct field for your annotations. This is what you want to see on the screen here. This distance field is more like a shape length, I'm assuming. The record distance
Yeah.
is something that's been recorded from your field measurements. Is that
What
correct?
is that the street length? Is it the shape length?
It's
The distance field?
No, we have a shape length there.
Yeah,
That's
there is
different.
In the identifier, you're showing the field names. In the table, you're showing the aliases. So is distance equal shape length?
And if we were to merge these 11 and 12, and we were going to do this in-house, we'd merge these, and what we would put as the measurement for that line, the northeast line, would be 1/10, and we would not want to see the 56.272 and the 56.153.
correct.
Those would be when we identified that line. It would show us that we have a 112-foot line, but we would want to see the 110. So it can't be a global thing where every single line gets the actual length on the ground, and then all the other stuff goes away.
Yeah. Cash, can you merge these two lines for us, please?
Sure.
Okay, so with the parcel fabric, the tools that we had so far, we have seen that when you do the merging, just the lines, I mean, just the parcels, the polygons were getting merged, but not the.
I'm gonna plannerize these lines.
Sorry?
The
I was gonna
annotation,
plannerize these two lines, but yeah, no, it's not gonna allow me to merge them. Just merging the lines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I can merge courses,
Yeah.
but
That should be good.
yeah, it's not gonna be the same. It's not really what we want to do.
what stops us from just drawing a brand new line from the northeast corner to the northerly corner?
Say that one more time, Doug.
What stops us from just deleting that line right there and connecting the dots between the northeast corner and the northerly corner of the yellow line? Just delete the yellow line and redraw it.
Yeah, it's something to look at, and I think you could probably delete those lines and then draw a line again, right? But I was wondering if there was any other information on there that you needed to preserve on those two lines.
It's going to have it. It may or may not have the data from the map that's underlying, but you can always re-add the data, or you can copy and paste the data from one of the other lines that you're not deleting. But we want to see that as one length. And in a case like this, what we would do is we would make that one line. We'd take one of those 55s, get rid of it, and move the other 55 to the center of the line and call it 110.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So then we would need to just create a new parcel before we did the merge. If we were to create a new parcel and a new plan before we do the merge, I believe that would give you that functionality.
Then you'd have
one. Yeah, it would combine.
Can you show us that process, Cash?
Yeah, let's check that. Once this is done, let's make sure that works.
Okay. So what I mean is also right now is that there are parcels going to historic parcels. Those two parcels before merge, after merge went to the historic parcels category. But lines, I'm not so sure. So can you check on that one too? What happens to the lines? Because it seems like almost like that lot info line that we were just looking at, like historic lines.
Yeah, so in this case right now, as this merger, what would happen is that line that was right in between 11 and 12 would go to a historic line and kind of be shadowed in the background. So someone who looked at it would say, this wasn't one big parcel of this subdivision. This is two smaller subparcels or two smaller parcels that were combined. And then we're going to drop a document right there that says LL 201000. And that's the document that merged it and linked that document. So
I think the parcels are there historic anyway right now. Do you still need to keep a record of the older lot lines is the question. The parcels are there. We do have parcel polygon. I think I want to see after this is done how those two were, like you can see the historic parcels, which are like, the hash shaped ones over here. And if we need to extend, like change something with the workflow as far as getting the right distances in there, something we need to add into the workflow. So we have the distance field and the record distance, and we are sure that it has to follow the distance field, right? The difference between those two fields, we know this is coming in from the field, but distance is what you're showing on the annotations here. Am I correct?
the historic data,
we have to show the record.
We want to show the record, but the record is not going to be, once this is merged, the record is not going to be 55. It's going to be 110.
Okay, so the field that needs to be shown as annotations is the record distance, but not the distance field. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It all depends. Like I said, there's apples and there's oranges. As a merger is administrative, so there is no field work. So we never get to figure out that these 55s are really 56s. So the only thing we know is that this line right here, because no field work was ever done, is that line is combining two 55s and it's 110. Now that's administrative. That's for lot line adjustments, lot mergers, lot consolidations. Now, if somebody was to come in and do a record of survey or do a map over these two parcels, they would do field work and they'd come in and they'd say, this is 56,272 and 56,153, so that new total is 11240. So it all depends. So sometimes we need to see it this way and other times we need to see it the other way. That's where it's going to be hard to differentiate. It's easy for us to differentiate because we know which one it's supposed to be. So we can't globally say we want this on on every single case because it's not the case.
Okay.
On some cases, we need to see the 110, and on some cases, we need to see the 112.
Okay. Now I understand. I'm understanding that there are two different procedures by which you, have these distances being shown on the map. In some cases, you want if it's a survey done. So what differentiates? Is there anything else in here that would tell us which one is from survey, and which one is from not from survey, like just mergers
When
and those kind of things?
when you
If
when you
anything is done, is if
Right.
it's a COC, and let's say if it was an administrative process, then it would be the record distances. And I think that's kind of where we're getting. And if it was like a track map, parcel map, record survey, then we would have to show the measured distances, which is one and the same. Measured and record will be what we're showing because that'll be the updated distances. If that's what you're asking.
it's hard
Yeah.
to tell because old mapping from the 1900s or beginning of 1900s and up to about 1950, lots, they tried to make the lots nice and easy, 55, 75, 100, whatever. Nowadays, because everything's circular and curved, you're going to get 5503s and you're going to get 7522s. So it all depends on the time you're tracking. So sometimes in certain areas you can say that's supposed to be a 55. In other areas you know that it's going to be something, an odd number.
Okay. Well, there's two ways. I mean, we can even build a complex expression depending on if you tell us if this, then that kind of rule. What I mean is, if there is a field that indicates this is record of survey, and you can build a complex expression. Like right now, when you were looking at it, it would just be like a very simple. Um, we had a simple expression right now. Just read off this field and put the text there, right? Instead of that, you could make it a little bit more, um, build an expression. And Lata can, clarify more on that, but she can
Is
go
that
ahead.
55 right there? Is that tied to a line or is that just a static number?
It is just a
That's
static
right.
number right now. It should have been tied to a line. If somebody,
But right now
Mhm.
in the system, that static line can stay exactly where it is, and everything static like that can stay because those are all parts of the historical data. So those don't need to change. And
Yes, turn on the historical parcels, please. And oh, because we ran the courses on this, is that why this
that
whole thing?
historical,
Yeah, so this
that's
whole
going to be
plan
the original
is
block.
now marked historic. Yeah, so the whole plan has now been marked historic. So
Okay.
to create a new parcel, and then merge the two into the brand new parcel,
Okay.
I think would accomplish that. So
Let's just go to a different location where probably there's no history or something.
okay, I'll just stop. And we can go anywhere. We can go over here.
Maybe outside of downtown, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Lisa.
Where you will have a lot of changes, right?
Yeah. Maybe somewhere larger down, like something like
I
these.
think that side up there on the northwest is going to be Wood Street's. Then I think on the southeast is going to be the freeway.
So something more in like the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
Just show us because you have to the history turned on and there's nothing already, over there that says it's
Yeah.
merged or not, right? So let's just take those two, like 14 and 17 maybe, and maybe merge those, right? What was your workflow that you were proposing on this?
I was going to create a new plan. Call it like merge.
Right.
These look good. All the default settings. You can add any attributes here. The name will update once we hit apply and OK. We want to set that as an active plan. So then what we can do is go ahead and select what, 14 and 17? Is that the ones you wanted to merge?
Mm-hmm. See, it says 110 and 113.
Okay, gotcha.
Just want us to remember these numbers there. So
Interesting, they're not selecting. That's very strange.
are you in an edit mode?
Yeah, yeah. Everything's turned on as well. This is bizarre.
Are they selectable?
Yeah, it appears so. You can grab any of these parcels. Let's turn off lines. Let's turn off groups. No, we'll grab those parcels. Down here, see if it grabs these.
Harita, I just wanted to jump in really quick. I just been listening in. Have you done a time check? You guys are well over the hour. Does anyone have a hard stop? I mean, have you guys checked in on time?
I don't really have a hard stop, but
Okay, Eslin?
Sorry, I had you muted. I'm fine. I'm here.
Okay, all right. Harita, do you have a ETA of how much more you guys need to cover, objectives that you need to get through today? Team, do you guys still have questions and things that you need answered? I just want to make sure we're moving through this productively.
Yes, we need some more time. I think at least an hour. Maybe if it needs to be, we need to have another meeting, we will do that. But we do have some requests on getting a little bit more information on the data. Specifically like data dictionary. Maybe let's do it this way. Cash, can we go back to the PowerPoint? You have it on?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I think the team is good to go till 3. Are you guys okay to work till 3 through this? Okay, so it sounds like
I'm fine
you're
with
good to
that.
go. But Rita, I just want to make sure you guys are sticking to what you actually need to cover today, so you don't leave not having got to that.
Right now, we're kind of going over annotation, and we have different types of annotation. And the request is, do we want to go with feature length versus standard annotation? So it would be good to have that nailed down before they start training people, because that's an additional workflow they'll have to train if it's not feature linked on how to update annotation.
Yeah, it'll be a massive amount of work. So
yeah, no, I got it. I've been listening in. I just want to make sure you guys are moving through it more
You're just going to be the rudder. You're our rudder, CJ. You're a rudder and our tiller. And the rudder and the tiller sailboat points the direction that we need to go.
we determine the pace, though. Unfortunately.
No, you guys determining the pace is the problem. But yeah.
Well, the wind does that, and that still amounts to us.
Yeah, that hurts a little bit.
Okay. All right. I'm hopping not out. I'm going back on mute. But Harita, if you could just kind of steer the conversation a little more through the agenda faster, so you guys could get through this by 3 o'clock. Okay?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So how was that movie?
Okay, so I have a question for you. Cash, can you open up our presentation again, and we can just look at, because
so that's open. It's just the screen's blinking.
Right. Okay. Lata, do you have the presentation on?
Yes.
Okay, let's switch to your screen for a moment. And these may not be like, I don't know if you have the answers right now, right away, but we did cover on the lot info lines and lot info points, and that's good. Let's annotations, we know, I mean, we can look at the expressions and tell you like where it is drawing off from the annotation. And again, like there were two possible ways of handling these annotations. Either you can clean them up before or after as you keep editing. And if you choose to, I mean, the amount of work, there is a little bit of work involved, and it's almost like you could go either way. You could use the feature linked annotations, cleaning it up, and once you fix it, you're good for the next time. But otherwise, you can make it like non-feature linked annotations without that relationship, but then you'll have to edit it manually. So there are those
I
approaches
don't think
available.
editing it manually is that big of a deal, because the city of Riverside is pretty much mapped out, so that our changes are not going to be all the time.
Okay.
So us having to go through and make certain changes to make sure that the record stays proper.
Okay.
But you guys,
That
so you
big of
guys,
a deal.
you guys would commit to going in and manually editing Ano. That Ano takes up like 60% of your edit time.
Yeah, it really could be over half your time.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you know, we get that, but we don't have a whole lot of more area in the city of Riverside right now to map. So the maps
To
come in.
parcelize,
And the reality is,
that's true. That's true.
it comes down to, you guys don't have any like recorded, you don't make assessor books like the county does that have to be printed out that gets dispersed to other people. Like, you don't actually have to report back to the State Board of Equalization and give them maps that show the recorded line lengths. So you guys could get by with even just doing
those maps are given to the state by the title officer when the map records. So that's taken care of. So ours is just internal, in-house, making sure that we have something that geographically represents what's going on in the city, and so that when the relationship to the aerial is very important to us, so that when we look at something from the person, that line matches what the aerial is. So that's why we don't like having aerials that aren't orthorectified.
Really? You don't like them? You like them orthorectified?
We like them orthorectified because they're associated with the ground. So those lines, when we have a lot line, that lot line is pretty close within, right now with that 2012 photo, on 90% of the city, I can guarantee that's within about half a foot.
Oh, the 2012. You're using the
Can
2012?
I quickly ask you one question, because this we have not seen any aerial imagery, I think, in the data sets so far. It may be something, if you
We
tell
can
us
give you
where it
guys,
is,
we
we
can,
can include
right now we only have the 2016 imagery services published.
Mhm.
I'm working on the 2012, the 2009, the 2007, and 2003s right now. And most of them, actually, the 2009s are done, 2007s are done. I just need to publish them as services. I'm cleaning up the adjacent areas that are in black or in white, because, you know, the post 1990, I'm actually working on 1998, 1993 right now. 98 and 93 are black squares, and so I'm just coming up with the right process to fix all that stuff. I have it down. It's just sometimes it doesn't quite work. But once that stuff gets fixed, then we're pushing out a reference mosaic, publishing it as a service. We can give you the 2016 right now, but if you need anything else, nothing is ready yet. 2012 is published, but I need to replace it because I need to fix the white partial, the no data polygons among the rasters, basically.
Okay, so I mean, in the sense that no other teams have really, talked so much about aerial in the past. Like, they were using the ArcGIS online base maps, and that was working fine. But I think that Cadastral does need the aerials that you have. So whenever you get that information, it's just a matter of adding to the MXD, and we should be fine. The other questions that we had, Lata, can you go onto the topology slide there?
So I can get you guys the path to the image services, and then you can add it. Well, 2016 anyway.
Okay. Now, we have some basic topology rules, right? So we were trying to see how these things can be built or made, better for your purpose. If we actually go to the data dictionary, and again, they both are kind of related. So Lata, can you show us the data dictionary slide and what we thought our questions would be? So we need to know, to come up with the list of rules, and for the layers to participate, we need to know what these layers are and how they. So these are the remaining cadastral layers, not the parcel fabric, but the remaining ones. And we tried to look. Lata, can you show us the data itself right now on map?
Okay, so basically I've inquired about to my team. I've done it once earlier, and then I just did it today. So I'm hoping that I get some feedback that says, oh, here's some metadata based on Cadastral. Do we have any, like, from the old coverage data? Do you have anything like that, Eswin?
I would have to see what we have back in the office.
Okay. Or Doug or Ken.
There you go.
I've only asked Lisa, but I haven't. Oh, somebody has the same background that Lisa has. For a second there, I thought Lisa was on the call.
So
Yeah, so basically we've inquired about the data dictionary. Hopefully we'll get word from that from somebody, whoever knows. I don't know.
yeah,
And
some
this
of
is the old data dictionary. This isn't the new. This is to explain.
Now,
them.
are you saying the data dictionary as far as, like, let's say, how we designate certain easements or right of way, or what we the nomenclature for the documents? Is that what you guys are talking about?
So you have the layers, right? And then there is sometimes a description given on the layer and how it works, or what is it used for, the purpose of that, right? So we want to, we know, for example, that the address points are supposed to be on the parcel, right? It's pretty obvious. It's an address point. It's going to be on, in the middle of the parcel. So we can build a topology rule saying that, hey, make sure that all of the address points are within a parcel. That's one rule that we can come up with, right? But when it comes to other layers, like, okay, this is annexation, and I'm trying to see if it does show, but I don't see much information. I, I don't know if it's a refresh or if there's simply no metadata there. But we just needed to find out, okay, what this layer is, how it relates to the other layers, and if you give us the business rule of that layer, then it's that's when
So
we
a
can come up with
description of what the layers are.
a description of what the layers are and what you use it for.
Okay.
And if there's any
Okay.
rules saying you cannot,
How many layers do you have of ours?
these are all your layers here inside Cadastral. Reference, we are not going after the reference layers. We know they're going to be just sitting there. Nobody's going to edit them. But
So like city limits, you don't want to have gaps or overlap in city limits. Annexation, I imagine you probably don't want to have gaps in it. It's probably okay to have overlaps, because obviously certain areas are going to be, well, I don't know, maybe there's no need for.
There shouldn't be overlaps in the annexation. They should be coincident with each other. And annexations are very similar to zoning areas.
I mean, we could kind of go with that right now. It's like CAD address points need to sit on top of a parcel. Annexations we can't have gaps or overlaps in the annexation. The CAD city limit can't have gaps or overlap. Do we want to set topology rules between city limit must follow or must cover annexation, or do we want to get to that level where we're using annexations with city limits where they need to align with one another? Theoretically, because if annexations are added and they're all up to date, then the city limit should be exactly overlaying those two should both overlay each other. So then control point
for the area that's not the original city. So there should be annexations around the city, and then there should be the open space in the middle, which would be the original city.
Oh, yeah. I think the way the annexation looks, can you click on annexation? Show the geometry. It looks like it's just, it could have been the city, but go show the geography. It's, yeah, so it's like literally this is what it was, and this is what's been added over time. But that overlaying boundary that you see there should be what we have today currently as city limit, I would expect.
Check.
So if that's the case, then we would want a topology rule that if you add an annexation, that the city limit gets updated to reflect the annexation. Or if the city boundary changes, well, what's the supporting documentation or layers that helped create that change within the city limit? And is it an annexation? If it's an annexation, then annexation has to be updated. So you can build topology rules between geometry. You couldn't do this in the coverage rule. In the geodatabase world, we can do these types of rules that exist between the different data sets. There is a spatial correlation between annexations and city limit. So it makes sense to me that we should put some sort of rule there. But what say you, Doug and Edwin?
I think that we have a document that stipulates that situation, and for every layer, I just don't know if it's in that detail. When it was first created, it would say this is the document that was created for Academy, and we have a PDF of it. I just have to, and I don't have it. I'm in the office, so I would have to go through it to see if it's something that you guys, something that will be helpful to you guys. But I don't think it's in that.
Are these
detail.
kind of rules important to the parcel fabric?
Yeah, it's really important for all your spatial accuracy of your data. These rules are to make that data the most accurate. So, like conceptually, you'd want to have parcel just from a pure sense. You'll want parcels to overlay parcel lines. So, like if you go in there and you manipulate a parcel, say outside of the fabric, if we had a parcel layer and a parcel line layer and a parcel polygon layer, if you deleted a parcel line that existed along the right of way, it would flag it as an error, a dirty area in your polygon data set. Hey, wait a minute, there's a missing line here. Because you got to have your lines line up with your parcels, and you need your parcels to line up with your lines. So then you'd go out there and you'd add a line. Or you could have a problem where you merged two parcels, but you didn't delete the line in parcel lines. So it would flag it as an error. Spatial or topology is a way to spatially identify problems in your data and to ensure that the data is correct as much as possible based on the rules.
ESM doesn't make mistakes.
Everybody makes mistakes.
Oh, come on.
Even the cadastral surveyors. Because maybe it's like 1/1000th of an inch off, and it should be 10,000ths of an inch. When you guys are talking about points.
Let me just look. Let me look at that document, and I'll forward it to you guys, because it may have everything that you guys are looking for as far as rules are concerned. But right. I'm not sure if it's to that detail that you guys want, because this was created 15 years ago.
Yeah, we can come up with like general rules, like but we wanted to make sure that if you have something, especially on so many of these layers that you already have, wanted to bring them across.
So there's no easement poly, because easement poly is something that was told to us that we need to create so that we can put easements into the fabric. So you're going to have a lot of easement lines, and you're not going to have any easement polys. So right there, you want easement lines. And if I'm understanding, easement lines and easement polys need to literally correlate with one another, right? So in order for that to happen, you're going to have a lot of errors. But you could build a rule that would say, hey, if you have easement lines that can go, that looks like it's set up as a polygon, like it closes upon itself, then you could set up a rule to be able to essentially construct the polygons from the lines. And then you guys would literally have to go there and clean up the topology to do that. But that's the long term for easement lines and easement polys. Those are two rules that should have, essentially you can think of easement lines as parcel lines and easement polys as parcels. So whatever rules that would exist between lines and parcels, you need to have that for easement lines and easement polys.
Yeah, okay. So we were wondering, okay, why you had both of them, because typically people only have like just the easement poly. So if this is like you have data here, eventually you want to move it here. That's the plan.
So at some point we wanted to get the easements into the fabric. And in order for that to do that, we have to do both the line and the polygon. That's what our consultant told us.
Okay. But it's not
But for
part of
now,
the parcel fabric as far as your schema is concerned right now, as it is, right?
right.
It's
No,
not part of
that's right.
that.
Nope,
Okay.
no. But we want it to be. In order for that to happen, we need to ensure that the polygons and the lines align with one another. So there needs to be rules between the poly and the line and the poly.
Yeah, okay. So then the same thing with legal document, we know that this is the document linking part, most likely, right? These are the layers that do the document linking to the different documents that you have listed over here. But I think the rule, the topology rule, is that it should be on one of those layers that it's probably on the lot line, um, or on the parcels, and it goes from there, I think. But again, so just looking at this right now, I mean, we just wanted to find out, you know, what are the different layers and what is the purpose of each layer. For example, we know that you use the tie point to basically as your start of the uh, defining your bearings and distances for drawing the parcels, right? So that's the purpose. We just want to make sure that we get a definition on all of these. Normally, I think in most of your data sets you had that metadata being shown over here, but it's not available in this one.
Yeah, for some reason it's probably got it probably just was never added because Parcel Fabric dropped 2 days. So they basically went out and they added the data, the source data, which is weird because the source data should have had metadata. So this was just a failure at Somas where they didn't do the metadata, but they literally dropped the fabric a day before they were supposed to submit it. Probably just ran out of time. And so this is something that we're going to have to update at some point. And ideally, we do it before we replicate because you can't replicate metadata. At least you couldn't.
Yeah, that and at the level of attributes themselves is like we had the attribute assistant set up for the other teams, right? So here, I mean, some of these, well, document linking is one important thing, and it's going to be addressed through the main document that you're going to be giving us, Ted, on how it links. But other than that, any other attributes, just trying to maybe.
That's weird that you don't see anything because generally speaking, an XML layer should be created for all of those where you don't even see anything. When you look at description right now, you see a blank screen.
Oh, correct. Yeah. But let me.
There's something going on your machine that's preventing you from seeing even the XML. Because I should be able to at least see a little square that would show me the thumbnail and then generic text.
Okay. A different version.
Yeah, we will do that. Just 1 second. What I wanted to say was these fields over here, for example, asset ID. There are some auto population going on for the water team and for the wastewater and so on, right? So we have some of those automatically calculated IDs, but do you have anything at the level of like these attributes, um, and how they're supposed, what data you want them? Because most of them may be blank at this point of time. But going forward, if you have come up with a design, you probably had in mind, like, what you wanted to fill there. So if you have that information, then that will be good for us to know, to see, okay, this can be automated, or the other one, like for example, there's something that needs to be input by the editors. They should never forget that, that kind of information, that kind of fields.
So part of the things they're asking for, Doug and Eswin, is because address points sit on top of parcels. They have a little tool called the attribute assistant that allows them to essentially transfer the address information, because we've added address name and address point or number to the parcel line data set. So theoretically, if the address is within a certain distance, anytime you do a line data set, it will go out and essentially query based on a distance to the address point and then transfer that information to your line data set to where you don't have to populate. So they want to get to a point where they want to populate as much as they can in an automatic fashion without forcing you to go in there and having to update all that information yourselves.
Got it.
Okay.
So the relationships between what's inside this polygon. So if you have a point in there that's for a covenant agreement, you have a point in there for a deed, and it's inside the polygon, and it's inside this tolerance, then it's going to grab all that data, so you don't have to hand enter it into the metadata. Correct.
Well, it's not so much putting it into the metadata. It's about if you had the legal information tied into a legal document point, and you wanted to transfer that, whatever records that they set up, they have a way. There's a tool. There's this is what everyone else has been implementing. That they, well, not us. It's DCC's implementing for us. Is they have a tool that will go out and grab and literally transfer that information between layers. So if you had a legal document point and then you had another field in parcels that had hyperlink, you could theoretically transfer the hyperlink from legal documents to parcels when you're editing the data.
That would stop you, because once you clicked on that information, it would be already listed in there. So you would, when you open up that information for that parcel, it would be included in that data. Hyperlink document, correct?
Yeah. Well, when you go in there and edit, the hyperlink should be across the board, but when you go in there and edit a new parcel, then do you go in there and type in the hyperlink value that goes from this hyperlink from this field in this layer to this field in this layer, or do you actually set up a relationship with an attribute assistant that will then populate that value automatically? You go in and construct a new parcel, or you merge two parcels. Is there a way to automate that process that grabs the right hyperlink or whatever it may be that needs to be there?
That would be nice if it was there.
Yeah.
We do this manually.
Yeah. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to automate as much as possible where you guys don't have to manually do it. Another thing they want to do is they want to go in and highlight fields that say, these are the ones you guys maintain. These are the ones that you don't maintain. These are the ones that are maintained, like editor tracking and global IDs. You guys don't need to worry about that. Everything else is going to make yellow. And they want to highlight that stuff so it calls you out. Oh, I got to go update the address type. And I got to update the subtype. Those are going to both be yellow in the future. And I think that's how the data dictionary, I think how they're playing. I'm just trying to work between the two, between DCC and Cadastral team. I'm kind of the middleman.
Yeah, that's basically.
Okay, so. Go ahead, Harry. So sorry.
I was just saying it's I mean, if you wanted, like if you already have a spreadsheet, that's fine. Otherwise we could just give you a spreadsheet with each of these feature classes on one tab and all of the attributes listed. And if you look at this, like how the data gets transferred from one to the other, those kind of things can be, we can identify them there, or we'd actually maybe want from you as to which ones are the attributes that you have to manually fill in from your sources versus which ones can be transferred from other data sets, like like the example that Ted gave was about the address points versus parcels, so things like that. So if you find the same,
we have something like that.
You have something already?
We have something. Yes. No, I'm saying we have, and the way that we follow it, and you got to just kind of bear with us, because we have just like a piece of paper that says, hey, these are the steps, and these are all the attributes or layers that you have to edit. And so what I'm thinking is that piece of paper will be a guide that you guys can use to implement what items need to be automated when we do a map. And that would touch addresses, lines. There's all these items that need to be checked off. And I think that's what you guys are looking for.
Yes.
Okay, we can sure.
Yeah. Something that you think that should not miss this field at all, right? So those are the ones that will highlight.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And then something that can be transferred is always something that can be set in attribute assistant, in transfer the attribute and like a plan number and those kind of things that can be transferred from one to the other. Yeah, it can
Yes.
be done that.
So I'll scan that and I'll send that over to you, and I'll CC Ted and CJ and Doug, just so that everybody's in the loop.
Okay, that
tomorrow morning.
sounds.
But you won't be able to give that to us till tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm not in the office today.
Yeah. I'm just pointing that out.
Lata, can you so now we know we're going to get a little bit more information on all of these layers, right? How they relate. Would we be getting some kind of a spreadsheet from you, Ted, or like the layers and how they reference each other?
So I'll reach out to my other member of my team and see if she has. She loves documentation, so I'll see if she has something on Cadastral. It's the only thing I can come up with. I can look through the Esri. I mean, not the Esri, the Soma stuff, and see if there was some sort of layer list that they created. Because sometimes they did that, and sometimes they didn't. So.
Yeah, we were looking at the geodatabase diagrams that we got from them, and what they have there is where they transferred, where from CADME did they transfer to which layer in the new database. That's what we see documented on that geodatabase design, other than the schema, of course, right? They tell which fields and what. So we have that information, but it will be good to know, like spatially. I mean, we can look at things spatially and say it, but it's more like, exactly when you were designing this, you had things in mind that you wanted to be implemented in a specific way. So that's why we're asking.
Yeah, how they relate to each other.
Yeah, how they relate to each other spatially.
Pretty much. I think we just kind of made it up as we went in some capacity. I mean, there were certain things that it was based on the data that Doug and Eswin needed.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was other data. It was pretty self-explanatory. Well, to me, I don't think we put out a plan. A lot of it was based on, this is the fields that we have today, and these are the fields that support where we're going. It wasn't necessarily like, I don't know. I don't strategically. I don't know if we I mean, there's a standard schema that comes with cadastral data in a fabric, for instance. And there's a data model out there that you can piggyback on, because you got to remember, with cadastral, the way the data was converted is it was converted from coverage into pre-fabric data sets. So there was a schema based on the local government information model. I think we were trying to match.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we went to the fabric, it was, if we go with this approach, we got to do it this way, right? If we went with the local government information full model in the fabric, then these are the problems we're going to have or have to track. Or if we go this way, we won't get this extra functionality, but what we'll get is the view that you guys get within your current data. And so it was essentially two conversions. So the schema that you kind of see that piggybacks a lot of this is the initial schema that was created post coverage world. And then 3 weeks later, we had a fabric. So it wasn't like a lot of this stuff, in my opinion, was all based on something that was just a standard that came out of Esri. Maybe not necessarily the full-on local government information model, but something fairly close.
Okay. So let's do one thing. Let's wait for the scan from Eswin. Meanwhile, if we can get any like general relationships or any other data, we look at that, we come up with like the topology rules. Like right now you do have a topology over here. Let's go to the properties.
Is there a way for you to take a snapshot of the layers that you have in here that you want us to make sure that if they're not on Eswin's list that he puts out, that we can try and give you some insight into those layers?
That would, yeah, we can certainly do that. What we can do is we can go into the Cadastral and yeah, we can send you actually a whole spreadsheet of Lata. Is that something that we
Yes.
can do relatively quickly, right?
Yes.
Just make a spreadsheet
Just
out of all of these.
something as simple as understanding that the city boundary has got to encompass all of the annexations, and the annexations should be following the city boundary, and then the internal lines of the annexations should be following property lines or center lines or something like that. So there's all different kinds of relationships like that that are intertwined.
Right. Yes, we can give you the list of all the layers, and then we can give you the list of the individual attributes that you can, take a look. Lata already has it. Good.
These are the list of layers.
Okay, yeah, she already has this list. Maybe we can just send this to you,
Fire
and
it
you
off
can.
in an email to us, and we'll take a look at it for sure. And then
Yeah.
if we want to revisit this,
Mm-hmm.
we
Okay.
can set something up.
Sure. We'll also send you one with the individual attribute listing for each of the layers. And so you have some rules over here already, which are like, let me just expand this so that you have
Yeah,
a couple.
I just kind of threw some together just to throw them in there, but I didn't really spend a lot of time on it. I figured we'd come back and review it anyway.
Okay. Okay.
If you want to include a little snapshot of that also, or a spreadsheet of that, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, we can certainly put these, Lata, maybe add a section in there or a new worksheet which just shows these rules.
Okay.
And then we
We
can
can
send
send
it.
you we can send you the PDF of the topology rules. Did you guys get that poster yet?
No.
Did I send that already?
Are you talking to us, Ted, or?
No, I'm talking to Cadastral. Didn't I send you guys a Cadastral poster?
No,
Okay,
I haven't seen it.
Explains all the topology rules that exist and what triggers an error, what's not an error.
Like must not overlap for polygons, and a line has to be so different kinds of rules that you can possibly build here, right? Yeah. Okay. So given this, what we have, we're going to send you that spreadsheet that we have. You send us your scan, and then we can, whatever rules we come up with, we'll post on DevOps. Just Lata, can we go back to this PowerPoint and then see if there's any other items that we needed to discuss?
Yes. Here.
Okay.
Okay, so I just posted a link in the chat. That's the PDF of the poster. Esmond and Doug, click on that, and then it'll open up in your browser, and then those are the rules that potentially can be applied to all your data.
Okay. A few other things are about these perpendicular lines and historic parcels and document linking items. We know we are expecting the data from you, so we don't need to discuss this. But we do need to check a little bit on this item number 257. And
Being able to draw perpendicular lines, is that what we're asking, or?
yeah, we were not really clear on that spec, what exactly it meant. Lata, do you have the DevOps open?
No, but let me see if I can quickly open
Or
it.
Cache, I think I have it open. Let me actually do it. Okay, 1 second.
Sure.
There should be a drafting function where if you have an existing line sitting there and you want to draw a line 90 degrees to that line, that you can do that. So you're creating a perfect 90-degree angle perpendicular, and that's all we're asking for there.
Okay, 258 was it, Lata?
Let me just go there.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry, I was in print 11.
257 is the perpendicular line. 257.
Okay, so it says ability to copy perpendicular lines to another feature. So that's where we kind of were wondering, is it like you have a line and then let me try to maybe sketch something here.
Yeah, why would we want ability to copy a line perpendicular to another line?
Yeah, we were not sure if it was for drawing lot lines perpendicular to the parcel frontage. That's what we were not sure.
Yeah, but why, if you're copying something, then you're instantaneously going to snap 90. I don't.
Yeah, more like an
I don't.
offset, right? Like a parallel offset. So
Yeah,
perpendicular
and
got threw me off. So
ability to copy lines perpendicular to another feature. So what are we talking about? Copy a line perpendicular to that feature. I think that that's what you're trying to do is if you have some kind of frontage and you want to draw a line straight out from that feature, 90 degrees.
right.
So you're not actually copying the line, you're just creating
Okay.
a line that comes off of another. So if you've got a 50-foot frontage on a property and you want something to come off perpendicular to that.
Yeah, it's probably like a workflow you'd use for easement lines.
Yeah.
And that's easy.
Point.
You just right click on the line and you can say perpendicular and then you can set a distance.
Yeah. I think
you guys will see that.
Yeah. And
offset.
That's just a lot of the stuff, the drafting functionality, I'm sure exists out of the box. And
Yeah. So we actually initially thought it was we didn't, at that time when we were coming up with the requirements, we were not really entirely sure about this. So now we know it's out of the box, and we can do that out of the box. You can do an offset of a line. So I think we can close this item.
So you can do it parallel or you can do it perpendicular.
Offset is always like parallel. But
yeah.
it's perpendicular to another line. That's probably the interpretation of this. Like you have a parcel frontage. Example. And you have a parcel frontage and you draw one lot line, perpendicular to that parcel frontage, and you keep offsetting the remaining ones by 60 feet, 100 feet, whatever it is. So, okay. So this, I think we can basically close this item.
Okay. The next item is historic parcel 259.
Yeah, this is the one I believe. Okay, so we intended to take a look at the historic parcels. You wanted to see how they play along. Right now, when you merge something, and you have seen in the example that those two parcels get into the history, the attribute history is turned on, like it's set to 1 from 0 to 1. So that's the way it works. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cash. Is that the way it is? Hello?
Yep.
Yeah,
so basically, as part of this, we have an old parcel history layer. If it cannot be included into the fabric, I think we had the understanding that that was the case per the last consultant. So that's why we have it set up the way we did. If you guys had a way to get that, that would be great. But if you can't, then we have the understanding that you couldn't do it anyway.
There could be way to move those parcels there. Our question is, did you want to keep it in both the tax parcels layer and the historic, or did you want to just have it in the historic?
I don't think we need it in two places. I don't. Once it goes historic, the chances of it being a map that comes back and those lines are needed again just doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, and I think your point would be, Haritha, is that if you were to copy it to the historic, well, historic is technically part of fabric. It's just a different category type.
Yeah.
So you'd actually have to stick it back into the parcel layer, because all of those are all those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and at some point we'll have easements, which might be 7 or whatever it is. Each one has an ID in this fabric. In the new fabric, it's broken up differently. So we would have to stick literally the parcel history into the historic parcels, and the historic parcels is technically part of the parcel fabric. So it's basically historical is yes, historical is no. Everything else is no. Once it gets changed, it flips it over to a 1. So we'd have to stick the parcel history that's in parcel reference into the parcel fabric. And I think at this point, it would be nice to have it there, but I don't honestly, it may be just a lot of work to get it set up that way.
So
Because all we transferred were the parcel polygons. We would have to literally go out and construct the parcel polygon for each historical parcel, as well as the historical line, to stick the parcels and the parcel lines back into the data set. I mean, if there's an easy way to do it, maybe that's the way, but I don't know.
it may be a little bit of effort in that when you want to bring the other layer called the historic parcels into the parcel fabric, because I'm sure that you will have a lot of other things to take care of, which is including the rules that parcel fabric needs to follow and making it compliant with those rules. But for now, is this okay to have this over here right now as historical equals 1? And going forward, this is your historic parcels, which is part of your parcel fabric still.
Yeah. Unless we come across an area that is more ancient, unless we come across an area that was maintained in the coverage world, then we have to go to the reference data set to look at the history.
Yeah, and you can always have it in the reference. Yeah, we can always do that. Okay, I think, Lata, can you go back to the PowerPoint? Are we done with all of the things that we needed to discuss then?
So did you guys understand that, Esmond and Doug?
No.
So to me, it was kind of like throwing out a fish line to see if there was an easy way to get the parcel history data into the parcel fabric. The parcel history data from the coverage world. And if I understand, no, it's not easy to do that.
No, because you got to create the original lots, and then you have to take those lots and split them, and you got to split them down 4, 5, 6 times, or 3 times, or whatever times, until you get to your existing. And so there's no way to create that.
Yeah,
without going through the process of starting from a blank slate.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if we need to go history before it went to the geodatabase, you'll have to go to the parcel reference or cadastral reference feature data set, because there's a history layer there. But if it's constructed in the last, 6 months from now, 6 months ago, okay, we have that in the history for the fabric.
As long as you understood it, Ted, I'm okay with that.
Okay, I think I understood. So basically, the history in the old world, you edited parcels and the parcel lines, and the parcels and the parcel lines existed in a coverage. The historic parcels were a whole separate coverage. And so you basically, I took this parcel and I split it into 2. I now copy those that old parcel that was split into 2, and I copy it to this parcel history coverage. In the geodatabase world going forward, that split operation is just saying, I'm going to calculate this field to equal 1. Instead of taking the parcels and deleting it and moving it to some other layer, all it does is it flips a little switch. It basically, when you come in and you split this parcel, you've constructed 2 polygons. Those polygons historical equals 0. And then where you split it or you merge whatever, that one equals 1. So that when you do a field definition query and you want to show history, you're going to just say historical equals 1, shows you all the historical data. There's one data set that shows you historical and current data. In the old world, there were 2 different data sets.
I always thought 1 was the loneliest number.
That's right. 1 is the loneliest number. But I think 0 is too. I think 0 is even lonelier.
I'm trying to look at the data, the metadata here, and I know that you had a lot of metadata on the other layers. So let me just go back to maybe Storm and check if we can see them.
Yeah, so for some reason you're not seeing it. So maybe there's a property that you have to define. Go to Windows options.
I used to be able to, Maybe I saw the data in like a.
You go open up ARC,
Yeah, maybe I'll try that.
since ARC owns all the data.
Right. I don't know if it's a privilege issue or if we have been having issues with both the map machines like Map 01 and Map 02. We think that they're kind of very slow.
Yeah, we're kind of seeing that with Pro on those. Lisa has been anyway.
Okay, so you see nothing's showing up even as ARC over here. I don't think it's a privilege issue. I'm going to go and close this MXD. Maybe it's a resource issue at this point.
I mean, can't you cancel that? Can you go to the catalog window inside of ArcMap and see if you could right click on the data, anything? Yeah, so double click on it and open up anything, Cadastral, right click on one of those.
It's taking a while.
Right click item description. There you go.
Yeah, it does show up here.
Weird. It's weird that it doesn't show up catalog. Catalog is pretty rock solid, but I don't know if it's going to show you a lot of data, but there's a way to get to it.
Yeah, but again, like the reason why we requested it's not because of that. These were mostly generic. In some cases, we found detailed descriptions, but not in all the cases. So we still kind of expect something from your side. We will send you the spreadsheet. We expect the scan from you and any comments on the spreadsheet on the relationships between the layers.
And I can tell you, Lisa's looking right now for the cadastral, if there's any like metadata, data dictionary for cadastral.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for your time. Sorry we went way longer, double the time.
Oh, that's all right. Got a lot of stuff done.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's good that we get through.
Okay.
We want it to
you.
be a streamlined process that we get through cadastral. So,
Right. Cash, do you have any questions? Hello, Cash?
I think Cash is having a microphone issue.
Yeah, I think, I mean, he came up with
He
this.
unmutes and then he unmutes
right.
and then he mutes and then it doesn't come back on. So I think he's having technical.
so Cash can say I'm okay through the comment field. You guys click the PDF. Ezra and Doug, you guys click the.
Okay, we see a comment there. Yeah, he said confirm, thank you, I can hear. Let me also quickly tell you that we have those videos that he made for the workflows. We'll send those to you. You can take a look and let us know if you're okay with those workflows. We didn't have time to go over all of those videos today, but since they're recorded anyway, you can, take a look at that. So those are the things that we will be sending. So with
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And
all right. Have a good day.
See you later. Bye. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.